Welcome to Tony's Bonsai. Things are a bit tight at the moment for a lot of people financially, so I thought I'd create a video listing my favourite 5 trees that you can collect for free. Now this is based in the UK, but a lot of these trees are available worldwide. So let's start off with number 5, which is the silver birch. Everyone's favourite thing about the silver birch is the wonderful white trunk that they develop at around 10 years of age. They've got lovely fine branches, quite delicate leaves that when the tree matures tend to hang down. And what I really like about them is how fast they grow. They're a very, very vigorous grower. They only live for about 80 years of birch, but because of that, they grow like weeds and they heal very quickly. This cut was made not much over a year ago, and already it's callousing over around the edges, and that'll be healed in another year, possibly 2 years. You know, so that's one of the good features about them. They do heal quickly. I've zoomed in on this branch here. It's got a lovely shape to it. It's quite thick already, and this only started growing in the spring from a bud. So all this has grown and developed this year, and I've already pruned it back and it started ramifying at the top. The reason the silver birch doesn't feature higher on the list and is only at number 5 is because they are prone to branches and even trunks just dying for seemingly no reason. So that's why I put it at number 5. This is an example. These dead branches and trunks are really not something I've had a massive problem with myself personally. I've got about 12 birch, and I think this is the only one where anything major has died off. But this one, for no reason, it just died and it's a goner. But fortunately it's still got some nice shape up here, and this has to be removed at some point. Probably do that in a future video. Next on the list, and in at number 4, is the common field maple. The reason I've included these is because these are super vigorous. I mean, they are tough plants. If you collect them at the right time of the year, early spring, they grow on super healthily. They put down loads of roots and they just grow like triffids. If you compare them to sort of the Japanese maple, these are bulletproof. This example's got some nice movement at the base. It's got a nice branch. The branch is coming from the wrong place really, inside the bend, but I could potentially cut that off and make that into the new leader. That's definitely a possibility, or perhaps chop it up here at some point. But seeing as I only collected this a few months ago, it's doing great. The reason I wanted to show you this maple, which again was only collected, I think it was collected in perhaps April or May, is not because of the top, which is growing on great. It's underneath. Look at the roots of that. That's put all that root down outside of the pot just in a few months. That's how vigorous these are. I thought I'd finish the field maple section by showing you this group planting. I think there's about 15 to 20 trees in this, and of different thicknesses. They've grown really healthily. I didn't expect them all to make it, but they're doing well. They've had a good growing year. They're beginning to turn now into their autumn colour, but can't wait for next year when this, I expect, to really explode with life. Third on the list is the common or European beech. I really like this tree. It works really well for bonsai. We're going to take a look at this one, but in a moment I'm going to show you it's one of my best trees that I've never shown on the channel before. But if you're enjoying the content, hit subscribe and you can follow the progress of all of my trees as they develop and as I work on them through the years. But this tree was collected at the beginning of last year. I worked on it by doing a major trunk chop at the top, and the thing with beech is it scars. So if you damage the bark, it really never heals, or it takes a very long time to heal. But when I started bonsai, I confused that with thinking that they didn't callus over. But actually, beech callus over really healthily and strongly, as I'll show you down here in the roots. I thought these roots, in particular this one, were a complete goner. There was hardly anything on the end of them, and they were badly damaged on the top. And look how they've calloused over and are rolling over to, they've almost healed. And I was amazed at how well they're doing. And I like this because to me this adds character, and I did want to keep this root. I think it's interesting. And here we've got a group planting of beech trees that I picked up from a local tree nursery. You can buy them in sort of February and March in most garden centres. They're usually sort of £2 or £3 each. So I put this together for probably about £25. They're growing on really healthy and strongly. They've got some good thickness and some good interest. And they work really well in a group planting. I couldn't quite get all the roots into this pot, so I left some of them exposed. But I like that. I think it adds some character and some interest to the composition. Here's the beech tree that I collected earlier this year. I went and collected it with my brother actually, and I was so happy. I let him beat me at a couple of frames of snooker, but don't tell him. And obviously it's the shape. I mean, look at that for a great tree. It's got some wonderful roots, and I've just really been growing this all year in this drawer. That's one of the reasons it's not appeared on any of my videos, because I can't move it. The drawers drop into bits. But it just needs to stay here for a year or two, get as healthy as possible. It's had a really good growing year, put lots of leaves and branches on, and then I'll be able to sort of decide what to do with this in the coming years. But for the time being, I just think great potential. Just zoomed in a little bit closer, you can see these lovely roots that are now sort of suspending it above the ground, which I just think is really interesting, and yeah, one for the future for sure. Collecting trees is one way to get trees for free, but another way to get trees for free is for people to just give them to you, as in this oak, which is number 2 on the list, the European oak. Who doesn't love oak trees? They're just a majestic tree. And I was given 2 of these by 2 really good friends of mine, Andy and Nancy. When I was ill last year, they came round and brought me a couple of oak trees, which they'd got from a friend of theirs. And this is one of them. It's got some lovely shape that I've wired in. It's got some nice low branching. What I'm going to do with it in the future, I'm not sure. It's a bit spindly up at the top, and I'm suspecting that I'll need to chop it. I think here looks like a natural place for the chop, or possibly here. But one or the other is where it's going to end. This top section, it's just too spindly. I've done a major chop here to develop taper, and that's healing over nicely. If ever there was a tree that I was hoping was going to make it, it's this oak. It's got a lovely wide curving base that goes up. I've done a major chop up at the top, up here. It's grown on really healthily this year, produced lots of leaves, and it's growing strong. So we've got the makings here of a bonsai in a very short period of time. I mean, I think this could look really good within the next 3 to 4 years. Just moving in a bit closer, this is what this tree's all about. Now, what oak trees are prone to send out lots of suckers, and this is where I've cut some off earlier in the year, and you've got to keep on top of these. I don't want more suckers coming out from this base, because I really want to show the line of the trunk going up there. I did some major trunk chops on this tree in a video probably about 3 months ago. I expected it to come alive after collection, and it didn't. It was just sitting there with no leaves, nothing, and I decided to go and do a major trunk chop on it, and look what's happened. It absolutely has gone crazy, which is fantastic. You can see in here where I made the chop. I did one chop here, and this has to be cut back down at some point and removed. That section has to be removed, and the section I chopped here just sprouted with life up at the top as well. There's also side branches that have appeared, and also some shoots from the base. So yeah, super vigorous, and you know, oaks, they seem pretty tough to kill. This is from my sister's garden. We were doing some work on a raspberry patch and I found this oak. I wired it in the ground. She was doing some work, so later in the year, last year, I had to move it. I transplanted it just to some sort of wasteland. And then in this spring, I collected it, put it in this pot. It's not growing amazingly healthily, but that's because it's had a really tough couple of years. But it's survived, it's doing great, and it's got some great movement. This S shape I put in with some very thick wire. You can see the scars from it here. But over the years, this will all go craggy, and these scars they don't matter. And ultimately, I see this as the apex of the tree at the top. So this will be removed, or possibly even this might be the apex there. And now for my number one tree, and can you guess what it is yet? Well, I don't think you're supposed to say that nowadays, are you? And of course, it has to be the hawthorn. This is my windswept tree. Needs pruning back actually, but it's taken on some really nice shape. I just love this species. They work really well for bonsai. They're quite hardy, they've got quite small leaves. They produce berries in the autumn, they flower in the spring. You can wire the branches, and I've got some really thick examples growing in the ground, some really chunky stuff round at my parents' house. But I've got quite a few here as well, and if you've not got any hawthorn, you're missing out. I've got a couple of wires still on this, moving a couple of these branches, but once the leaves have dropped, I'll be doing extra refinement on this tree this year to create that proper windswept style, which I love. I've got loads and loads of these little hawthorns that I've wired some movement into. They've got really interesting little bases, and they're just going to make great trees in the future, I can tell. You can get this kind of shape there when they're very young, and it sticks with them then through the years as they develop. I thought I'd finish off by showing you this contorted mess, but there is some sort of reasoning behind the shape of this tree. My plan is for this to grow in a raft style. So the roots are going to be in some soil. This is going to arc out of the soil, and then this base here is going to go back into the soil and hopefully root. So I'll have multiple trees and a kind of bridge of trunk in the middle. And it's time actually now to get this wire off. So I'll quickly take this wire off and just show you how it's doing. I won't go through the whole wire removal process because it can get a bit boring, that. But I just wanted to show you the wires that I've applied to these branches, and the reasons why I've applied them was, for example, this branch here, it just came out straight. So by using this wire, I bent it into this unnatural position, because hopefully next year when I create this raft style and plant the tree up properly as I've got planned, as I just explained, then this will automatically now be in a position to grow upwards as one of the new sort of trunks of the group planting. So I'm going to do the same now and just remove all these other pieces of wire. You can see here the wire's bitten in quite badly, but I'm not bothered about that because this section is going to be going under the ground, or at least very close to the ground. And over the time, I find hawthorn heals up really well, which is another of the reasons why it's one of my favourite trees. I had to end my video with my cascading hawthorn. I love this plant. My dad found this little sapling growing in the ground. They grow like weeds in the UK. It was about a foot tall, and over the last 2 growing seasons, I've bent it and manipulated it and wired it into this cascade form. I think it works really well. And that's the idea of this video, is to really give you the motivation to get out there. You don't need to go and spend hundreds of pounds on bonsai trees. You can start with free material that's just lying around. You can go to garden centres and buy cheap deciduous material like this, especially in February and March. It's available in garden centres, you know, yew, which is marked as Taxus, blackthorn, hawthorn, oaks, beech. It's all available, and you can start your bonsai journey. And that's what I want to kind of explain, is that you just need a couple of pots, a couple of stumps, buy yourself a bit of wire and a pair of scissors, and you're good to go. And join us in this fantastic journey of bonsai. So as always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.